Hello subscribers and non-subscribers, and welcome to another episode of ChäoS. There is one thing that I want to ask you all real quick before I actually hop into the episode, which means also before I start the timer, which I still have to set up anyway. But the one thing I want to ask you all is that if you could, go back and check and see all of the weeks of ChäoS that I missed. So all the weeks that I was supposed to upload ChäoS but didn't end up doing so. I would like it if anybody could go back throughout this year, 2016, and check and see all the weeks that I missed. The reason being, starting in probably about early to mid-December, I'm going to try to start make up for all those weeks. What does that entail exactly? Well, that basically means recording an extra 30 minutes or so to each episode. To, as I said, basically try and make up for all those weeks that I missed and get us hopefully closer, or at least back on track to where we would be if I hadn't missed all those weeks. The only weeks that I will ask that you do not count are the weeks that I was either out of town or sick. Now, I don't think I was sick at all in 2016, so I don't think there'll be any of those weeks, but there is at least 1 week in August that I was out of town. So that's 1 week that I will ask that you guys do not count when tallying up all the missed weeks. But that's all I wanted to ask you all. I mean, I could go and do that, and I might a little bit closer, but it's a little bit easier for me if somebody else does it, because I haven't bothered tallying up at all this year for missed episodes. But that is all that I wanted to ask you all real quick, so let's go ahead and hop in. I will probably upload a video towards the end of maybe November asking how many weeks I missed. Obviously that would entail you guys going to the comment section of that video, posting all of the missed weeks up to that point, and then I'll use that to go and try and plan out exactly how to set up making up for all the missed weeks. But let's go ahead and load up the game and start. Okay, 1 second. That was not a good sound. Okay, sorry about that, guys. It would appear as though I didn't install Locale Emulator properly, or at least I didn't update it properly to a more recent version. But it's now working after going through the process of trying to uninstall it and reinstall the new version. So let's go ahead and continue. Let me go ahead and get my timer set up. So 1 second. And start a timer for 30 minutes. Okay. So, he confirmed that he had some small change rattling around in there. His partner walking behind him, Detective Suwa, had been complaining for a while now in a fed-up voice. That was natural, given that Ban and Suwa were supposed to have been performing surveillance on Nishijo Takumi, a vital person of interest in the new gen cases. But at the moment, the two of them seemed to have left off tracking him and had come to the scene of the third new gen incident, commonly called the staking. Ban had unilaterally decided to shove their original duty, tailing Nishijo Takumi off on another district detective. The newbie Suwa found this rather unsettling. And you guys might hear my dog snoring in the background. From the point of view of a new detective, it wasn't easy to put up with how his senior led him around by the nose without the slightest explanation. And so he had been spending all this time persistently trying to persuade Ban otherwise. But the key person, Ban himself, said, he neither lost his aloof attitude nor lent an ear to his junior's argument. At last, a narrow street sealed off by yellow vinyl tape came into view. As Sua let out his nth sigh of the day, his cell phone vibrated near his chest. It had been set to silent. Swiftly pulling it out, he put back on the face of an able detective and pressed a button to take the call. Listening to Sua speaking at his back, Ben stood before the vinyl tape. Behind it lay the crime scene. A deep darkness had settled down there in the same manner as when the crime took place. Now there were no longer any traces indicating that something had happened here. Upon hearing those words, Ben broke into a rueful smile. There were times when Sua could be unexpectedly shrewd. Of course, when Ben hadn't meant to take his subordinate or the other district inspectors, of course, even Ben hadn't meant to make his subordinate or the other district inspectors take responsibility for whatever happened. At nearly the exact same time that Sua ended the call and turned back toward Ben with a reproachful look, Ben ducked under the tape, roping off the area. Sua had no choice but to follow. Ben put a hand to his jaw and briefly relished the sensation of his rough, unshaven chin. And 1 second. Okay, just wanted to make sure that I actually had my audio still set up, because I also updated Bandicam. Let's see. Okay, no, I already read that. He then slowly took some change out of his pocket and began counting them one by one in the darkness. Sua regarded his senior's eccentric behavior with a blank look on his face. Perplexed, Sua picked a 500 yen coin out of his wallet and held it out to Ben. But instead of taking it, Ben tore off the lowest button sewn onto the white dress shirt he was wearing. He unwound the thread that looped around and around it. Smiling wryly, Ben gave Sua a light thwop on the head. Afterward, he accepted the 500 yen coin and ran the thread through the hole in its middle. Once he had pinched both ends of the thread in his fingers, with the 500 yen coin dangling down from it, Ben handed it over to Sua. Ben grinned mischievously. Sua's manner of speech was starting to hint at grief. He'd been dragged around by Ben countless times before now, but just this once, even he seemed pretty scandalized by it.
ユーリ・ブライトマンっすよ。今話題になってるアメリカの超能力捜査官っす。
俺が見たのはそんなチャラチャラしたもんじゃねえや。どこかのお偉い大学教授が出てたな。
でもテレビっすよね。
一文句のやつだ。
One second. Okay, let's just go ahead and continue.
やってみりゃわかる。ほら、いいから吊るしてみろって。
Stewart couldn't refuse when his senior put it like that. Pursing his lips, he suckingly accepted the 500 yen coin. He held the ends of the thread and began slowly twirling it around, creating centrifugal motion. It was dark and hard to see, but Ben took out a 100 yen lighter and flicked it on to provide some illumination.
先輩ってタバコ吸いましたっけ
10年以上前に禁煙したよ。なんでだ。
ライター持ってたっすから。
こういうこともあろうかと用意しといたんだよ。
はは。で、これで何がわかるんす
いろいろ動かしたり止めたりしてみろ。
Van focused unwaveringly on the movements of the 500 yen coin. His eyes were so marked in their seriousness that Suwa couldn't bring himself to voice any further complaints. 1 second again. Okay, let's continue again.
やっぱり。うわ、わかるか。
何がっす
五円玉の動きだよ。さっきから少しだけ楕円を描いてるような気がしねえか。
Held up by the thread, the 500 yen coin slowly went around and around. Suwa tilted his head.
力の入れ方とかじゃないんすかね。
お前、楕円に回るように意識してやってんのか。
いや、結構適当にくるくる
と。もっと手を動かさねえようにやってみろ。
はあ。
Suwa attempted making a deliberate effort to force it around in a circle, but no matter how many times he redid it, the coin continued drawing the shape of an ellipse.
おかしいな。
意識的に違う形にしようとしてもできねえだろ。
Ben looked around as he spoke. Suwa, in contrast, appeared to remain unconvinced and continued stubbornly swirling the pendulum.
まあ、渋谷のどこでもこの現象が見られるわけじゃねえが、それでも十数箇所はここみてえな場所があるらしいぜ。
確かに不思議っすね。でも、だから何なんす
Ben raised his face with a satisfied expression, but put his lighter away in his pocket and in exchange drew out the fan he had shoved through his belt.
お前、渋谷がなんでここまで若者を引きつけるか知ってるか。
五円玉が楕円を描くからっすか
Suwa had meant it as a joke, but Ben gave a prompt nod as he fanned himself leisurely.
まあ、そういうことだ。
なぜこの渋谷という場所は若者たちをこんなにも引きつけると思う。
And we're back to this. FES suddenly leapt to a completely unrelated topic. I thought she'd started treating me like I was a perv, but instead she disregarded it.
いいえ、世界を見渡してみてもこんな場所がなかなかないわ。
Did this have anything to do with the D swords? If it didn't, I wasn't interested. I had to find some way of asking FES how to acquire a real D sword.
新宿でも池袋でもなくても渋谷、この町の名前が一人歩きをしてしまうくらい。
The two FES spoke at precisely the same time, their voices coming from behind me and in front of me. Impeccable synchronization. It put me in a peculiar frame of mind somehow. Had FES split in half, or were both of them the real FES? Or were both of them imposters?
日本中の人たちに刻まれているわ。若者の街という記号。なぜかしら。
Why, you ask? Because I didn't care either way.
ファッションの街だから。お店がたくさんあるから。流行の発信者から。よくテレビに映るから。交通の便がいいから。違うわ。ドリ。
The two FES left a momentary pause. I grew uncomfortable at the thought that they were watching me from both the front and the back.
大いなる意志。工事存在。もっとわかりやすく言え。神より意志なる。
This is bad. My reason warned me. Could this mean? Maybe she was trying to lure me into a sketchy cult religion, and I started to panic. Maybe it would be better to run away. But when I heard FES's next words, that ceased to be an option.
理想度もまたその意志による導きよ。
引力ってあるだろ
Van returned to the main road from the alley and began walking in the direction of Shibuya Station. Sua, who had assumed they were going to Shinsen next, grimaced as he followed in Van's wake.
万有引力のことっすか？
よく知ってるじゃねえの。さすがいい大学出てるだけあるな。
Sua grew downcast at Van's faintly jesting tone.
あいにく大学じゃオカルトは勉強しなかったっすけどね。
オカルトじゃねえよ。世界には引力がアンバランス化してる地域ってのが何か所かある。
アンバランス化ですか？
グリコが楕円を描いたのもその影響ってこった。GE レートって呼ぶらしい。
GE レート。
ああ、正式名称は何だっつってたかな。グルバケーショングラリッシュエラー。
引力ならグラビテーションじゃないですか？グラビテーションエラーレート。
おお、そうそう、それだ。
You know, one thing I've noticed is these two are the ones that actually tend to move their mouth the most when talking. I think a lot of the other characters, their mouth tends to just stay shut when they're talking.
グラビテーションエラーレート。
直訳すると万有引力の異常値ですか？
物理学の辞典を調べりゃ載ってるはずだぜ。
載ってたっすかね。
GE rate, an imbalance in the law of universal gravitation. Discovered by Isaac Newton, the law of universal gravitation is a fundamental force of nature that works between all substances and forms of energy, etc., which contain mass. A number of strata found layered upon the Earth's surface are said to powerfully influence this law of universal gravitation. Lava beds are a representative example of places that induce local irregularities. The vast sea of trees that lies at the fountain Mount Fuji is such a distinctive instance of this that compasses cease to function there. Researchers have already determined that fossil beds, which contain peculiarly high levels of iron and calcium, are another type of stratum wherein magnesium rebounds, or magnetism rebounds. Also, magnetite has an especially strong effect on gravitation. If naturally produced magnetite, an ore that crystallizes into regular octahedrons, were to be found beneath the Earth in a large enough quantity to merit recognition as a geological dike, such a scenario would indeed equate to the ground itself being formed of magnetite, resulting in an extremely high chance that trace deviations in gravitation would develop there. GE rate refers to the twisted local gravitational values found in areas containing the aforementioned strata. Around the time when Band's explanation reached a stopping point, the two of them came out of the street by Dugan Hill. The scenery around them became bright and gorgeous all at once.
渋谷の平均 GE レートは世界でもトップクラスらしいぜ。地面に置いたボールが一人でに坂を登っていくようなケースもあるらしい。
Now that would be a sight to see.
マジっすか?
Sue had been listening silently up to this point, but now he showed his surprise a bit exaggeratingly.
まるで SF 映画の世界っすね。
お前の好きなな。
自分は小難しいのは嫌いっすよ。壮大なスケールの映画がいいっす。
知らねえよ。
先輩の説明はすごくもっともらしいっすけど、なかなか信じられないっすよ。GE レートなんて聞いたこともないっすし。
てめえの無知を一般論として語るな。デカに必要なのは事実を客観視することだぞ。
Yeah, and how many detectives do you think are going to look at something like GE rate? Considering, well, in reality, it's not going to be helpful at all. I'm fairly certain of that.
はあ。でも。
As Sue said, research pertaining to GE rates was fairly minor in scale, and one certainly wouldn't hear of it simply by graduating from a normal university. Ban himself hadn't known of it until a few weeks ago.
そもそもまだ肝心の答えを聞いてないっすよ。渋谷の重力がアンバランスだとなんで若者が引きつけられるんですか？
引力と人間ってのは意外と因果関係があるってことだよ。お前、生き物のバイオリズムは月の引力に関係してるっての知ってたか？潮の満ち引きだけじゃねえんだぜ。
ウミガメの産卵には月の影響があるらしいってのはどっかで耳にしたことがあるっす。
ああ、必ず満月の夜に産卵するってやつだな。だがウミガメだけじゃねえ。他に有名なのだとサンゴが産卵するのも満月の夜だ。
ああ、海の中が雪降ってるみたいになるやつっすね。
満月の夜は引力も強くなってるって科学的に実証されてんだ。
Really?
当然人間にもその影響は及んでる。
人の出産にもってことっすか？
出産だけじゃねえよ。バイオリズムって言ったろ。普通の生理現象はもちろん交通事故や事件、病気、食欲とか性欲とかにも密接なつながりがある。興奮すると頭に血が上ってるっていうの。あれは月の引力に引っ張られてるんだよ。
そりゃ極論だと思うっすよ。
Yeah.
まるで個々の感情なんて関係なくて全部月のせいだって言ってるようなもんじゃないですか。
そこまでは言わねえがな。集団心理って言うだろ。この町に来た途端に楽しい気分になったり、ちょっと無茶したくなったりするかもしんねえんじゃねえの？ニュージェネの一連の事件に対する反応だってそうだ。この町でそのニュースを見た連中は大抵反応が同じだ。どいつもこいつも楽しんでやがる。自分だけは被害者にならないって気持ちだ。対岸の火事を眺めていい気になってる。
そういう集団心理も GE レートのせいってことっすか？
可能性としてはありだろう。渋谷に来たら楽しい気分になるってのが若いやつらの頭の中に無意識にすり込まれれば。
I have nothing to say.
若者がこの街に惹かれる理由になるってわけですね。
As expected, Sewell was a quick study, Ban thought admirably. admiringly. He was still young, but this side of him was rather impressive. And what set him apart from other youngsters was how, instead of simply following his seniors, he argued back when he had doubts about something or found it peculiar.
GE レートについては一応分かったっすけど、それでどうやって犯人を探すんですか？もし GE レートに影響されて今回みたいな事件が起きたってなら、何百年も前から似たようなことが起きてないと変なんじゃ。
そいつはこれから調べりゃいいさ。専門家がな。
先輩は調べないんですか？
俺はデカだぞ。
Ban smirked. Okay.
調べるのはニュージェネのことだけだ。そのために今日はわざわざ仕事をサボって現場の GE レートを測ったんだ。もしこれまでの一連の現場の GE レートが異常を示したなら、
まさか。
Oh, I thought he had finished talking. Eyes round, Sua stopped in place. He appeared to have picked up on what Ben was trying to say.
事件は GE レートが異常を示している場所で起こるってことですか？だとしたら次の事件が起こる場所をある程度予測できるんですね。
まだそう決まったわけじゃねえ。それをこれから調べんだ。
There was something to the city. Something unidentified, hidden in the depths behind its gaudy exterior. Maybe it was a Pandora's box that humans mustn't touch. So, Ben thought to himself as he surveyed the people going down the road. When I heard those words, I couldn't stand it any longer. FES kept on avoiding the subject by bringing up the stuff I didn't care about. I had zero interest in things like her great will or why young people were drawn to Shibuya. I only wanted to ask her one thing. I demanded of FES, mustering all my courage. Without any change in her world-weary expression, FES dropped her gaze to the D-sword she was carrying. Despite its enormity, she appeared to handle it with ease. I wondered if the truth was that she possessed some kind of ridiculous strength. What's with dropping all those hints and then refusing to tell me the most crucial part of it? She didn't know. Then how the hell had FES obtained the sword she was holding in her hand right now? So, if you revert... What? Rivers? I don't even know. Whatever. That meant people without the power couldn't see them? Yes. I guess this would be reversed? It just doesn't look right to me. I could say... I could see it clear as day, but... What power? Did I have the same kind of supernatural power that allowed there to be two FES standing before me right now? Well, there's a reason why somebody would be asking how to get one. It would entail that they probably see it. If it was the power's fault that Shogun and Yua were meddling with me, I didn't want that kind of meaningless power. Except, even so, I wanted a D-sword. FES had said it would grant me salvation. It didn't matter to me whether a great will existed or why young people were attracted to Shibuya. I didn't need any kind of power, and I didn't want to get caught up in anything bothersome. But to slip away from Shogun and Yua, the only thing I had to get my hands on was a sword. But as before, FES's answer remained ambiguous. I bit my lip and thought frantically about how to squeeze more information out of her. But, given how poor I was at talking with 3D people, I couldn't come up with a single effective method. I tried thinking about Aragay situations that might prove to be helpful examples, but all that came to mind were barbaric things like making her drink an aphrodisiac, or tying her up, or confining her. It might be the worst kind of human being.
君、名前は？
Facing me with her back, FES began walking slowly into the depths of the tunnel.
私は岸本綾瀬。
Now that she said it, I realized we hadn't so much as introduced ourselves.
西条匠。
I couldn't see ISA's expression from my position. I didn't know why she laughed at me.
また会いましょう。匠。
ISA retreated into the distance. Wondering what had happened to the other ISA, I gingerly turned around. Her form had already vanished, leaving behind not the slightest trace. Had she literally disappeared, or simply walked out of the subway? ISA called her a delusion, but was that the power of the D-Sword? I returned my line of sight to the subway interior. ISA was just beginning to climb up another set of stairs located about 50 meters deeper down the tunnel. At last, I completely lost sight of her. All that remained afterwards was the subway's eerie silence. I lacked the boldness to yell out and stop her. As for running after her, I was exhausted, and my sense that it would just be a hassle overruled everything else. In the end, all I could do was timidly return home, so as to avoid being spotted by Yua or the police. And my timer just went off. I think I will end this episode here. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, and I will see you guys next time. But until then, goodbye, and